hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
Boy, is it another day. It's Wednesday. It's also the beginning of the Republican debates tonight. And there's Trump and Tucker. They're going to try to upstage Fox in the debates. And I don't think they're going to have much problem with that. I mean, Trump is already at, 62%,
Bill,
a big lead?
I've been looking for that article about where Tucker and Trump are going to be, and I can't find anything about it. Are they going to have an interview tonight? I mean, did you read anything more about this? Because I even had a person from Florida email me yesterday and say, if you can let me know where they're going to be, I'd like to watch it, but I can't see anything about it. And I haven't either.
I saw that they were recording something, but it didn't say where it was going to be.
Trump said something cryptic yesterday. He said, I won't be watching the debate. I'm going to be very busy. That's what he posted on Truth Social. And I'm thinking, what do you mean very, very busy? What are you going to be doing? No mention about where.
Well, you know what? Look, he's in Fulton County today, and they're
tomorrow.
talking about him.
That's tomorrow, isn't
it? Oh, tomorrow, yeah. Okay, that's right, yeah. And they're talking about making him a flight risk, and screw it, lock him up. And he's even said, they're probably going to lock him up. And he lightly said, well, I could just sit there and, flee the country and, go wine and dine with Putin. Which was a joke. You knew that. And they'll go, he's a flight risk. He's got a jet. Well, you know what? In your logic, in your world, he's always been a flight risk. So why would he show up for bail, and why would he show up for this and that and do this? If he really thought that he did something wrong, then he would be the biggest idiot in the world to fly around in his jet and campaign and knowing that he was a criminal. He's not. Think about it. Just think it through. If you had this big, luxurious jet, all the money in the world, and you were guilty of crimes, would you sit around and face the music, or would you get the hell out of Dodge?
Dan Bongino suggested something interesting. And I first shook my head like, that's ridiculous. But I thought, what, it might be an interesting strategy. Bongino says, what he should do? He should present himself at Fulton County tomorrow, and he should refuse to pay the bail. He says, here's what will happen. First of all, because he's a former president and the Secret Service have a responsibility to protect him anywhere, they will have to protect him in the jail. In the jail with him. Odds are the entire floor of the jail will be cleared out because they have to protect him. They can't put him anywhere near prisoners. So,
what they would do? They would say, "Well, thanks to Trump, we had to release all these prisoners."
Well, that's not his problem. He's refusing. He would be refusing bail because he would believe that it is unjust and unwarranted and unfair, right? So, and not only that, Bongino says, can you imagine the crowds of people that would show up in Atlanta to stand around that jail and protest what's going on? He said that might not be a bad thing. Right now. And maybe this is just what the other side needs to see.
Well, yeah, and could Trump sit there and have cameras inside there and do press conferences from inside and conduct business from inside the jail?
I don't know. Would they confiscate all that stuff? Would he have no access? I would imagine he'd have access to his attorneys. That would be one thing. And I don't know as far as having computers and cell phones. Yeah. That could be another thing altogether. But, he would be a political prisoner, maybe the first in our history. Think about that for a second.
He is already a political prisoner. I mean, you've got the left that is sitting there going, and I see the news clips all the time, well, he's got to be taken off the ballot due to the 14th Amendment, this and that and this and that, insurrection. He incited an insurrection. Well, let's back this bus up.
Oh, I've heard that expression before, yes.
All right, number one, it has never been officially declared or ruled an insurrection. It is a matter of public opinion, which is divided. Yes, you had that crap show that was on TV. That wasn't a real trial. Trump was not charged. He did not get convicted of insurrection. So there's an opinion. There was an insurrection. There wasn't an insurrection. There was a protest that became a riot, but it was a friendly riot that was oversold to America.
I don't think the riot was caused by Trump supporters. I think
Again,
one of these people that believes it was probably started by Antifa and people like that who were there to cause trouble.
Case in point, public opinion. So it's not an insurrection, not something that Trump did, and he was never officially charged with it, prosecuted for it, or anything. So therefore, it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment to say, we're going to use that to get him off the ballot. Once you have done that, you have created an insurrection of your own sort. And what the consequences will be, whether it's civil war or anything of that nature, they have pushed it too far. They have made the line in the sand. And if they walk over that, all bets are off.
My question is, where have you seen an insurrection where there were no sticks, there were no pitchforks, there were no guns, there were no knives? These people were there. You saw them walking through the Capitol between the rope lines. And these people looked more like tourists than insurrectionists. And yet they call it an insurrection. If it were an insurrection, they would have trashed the inside of the Capitol, but they walked through it with great respect. The only people who did any damage were the Capitol Police, specifically that lieutenant who gunned down Ashley Babbitt for no good reason. To this day, I cannot believe that woman lost her life for no good reason because some idiot decided to pull his revolver and shoot her.
Some crotchweed, crotchweed. That's where the name from. I mean, no, you're right. And what has been done about it?
Nothing. No.
So her life became worthless in the Democratic eye. And everything the Democrats do. And listen, I was a Democrat. My family was Democratic. Some in my family still are, the ones who don't pay attention to politics, just kind of go along to get along. They're more interested in other things than politics. But, the old school Democrat was all American. The new school Democrat is socialist. No question about it. If you look at their party, everything they do is socialistic. Everything they do. If you're a Democrat listening to this show shaking your head, I would suggest you point out to me something that they've done recently that isn't socialistic. They dropped the borders. They want to pay. You're going to find out. I'm playing an audio cut from Colonel McGregor in a few minutes from the Tucker podcast. But he says something really interesting in it. He says, the people coming across the border, the illegals who come into this country get $2,200 a month. The Afghans who came into our country, after the Afghan war, got $2,200 a month. And senior citizens who worked all their lives and are on Social Security on average make $1,400 a month, which means that the illegals get $800 a month more for doing nothing other than breaking our law, more than the average senior citizen who's on Social Security. I mean, that is mind-boggling. Look at what this Maui thing. Maui. People lost everything. They give them $700. That's like groceries for 2 weeks. Amazing. Yeah. You asked me a question before the podcast about Tucker and Trump.
Yeah.
X.
Is it going to be on X?
It's going to be on X. As soon as they do it or have done it, it'll be posted on the X. And so you probably have a time because tonight, 9 o'clock, the debates, they're going to try to upend Fox.
Well, I think there's a good chance that people are going to watch President Trump. The only problem is for a lot of people, there's a convenience factor. Television, you walk over, you hit a button, bingo, you're there. A lot of people don't know where to find. I mean, don't get me wrong. On average, I think Tucker does about 15 million people on his podcast. I mean, it's amazing how many people who watch him on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But, but I do think that he'll have a massive audience tonight, and he may very well beat this boring debate over on Fox. You know what Fox did? Fox said, look it, Trump's not going to be on the debate, so any of the surrogates who attend the debate and go to the spin room afterwards, after the debate's over, they have the spin room where they go, I'll go in. Any of Trump's surrogates are not welcome. They're not welcome in the spin room.
See you later, Fox.
Fox has shown their colors, man. I don't know. Every so often you get lazy as a viewer and you kind of crawl back over to see what's on, what are they covering, But every time you crawl back over, Fox lets you down nowadays.
Fox has done it before, so I think it's time to out Fox and just be done with it. Let them just sink down into the cesspool and become the slime that they really are, because that's what they are. It's where they want to go.
Yeah.
And I like Judge Jeannie, and I like a lot of people that are still there. They need to go and find new jobs on a new network, even if they have to take a cut in pay, if they believe in their principles. And that is a debate we're going to have a little bit later on in the show, because I was taking a walk yesterday, and, CRN America had gone down, so I had fixed it. And I said, well, here's a good chance to sit here and listen to today's podcast and another one as I take my 2-mile walk. And I said, wow, we're really fun to walk to.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some contemplating. We'll talk about that later. There's news to talk about, but
we got to talk about also. We should talk about why is it that politicians let us down so much on our side too. That's another thing which we should talk about.
Well, that'll be part of that. That'll be part of that, because.
But you mentioned Judge Jeanine and how you like her. She really nailed Joe Biden yesterday for his performance in Maui. He's
a narcissist. Well, he fell asleep too.
She was talking with I forgot her name, but she's the liberal on the 5. And I can't think of her name, and she drives me nuts.
What's her putz?
Yes, what's her putz. And first you're going to hear what's her putz, and then you're going to hear Judge Jeanine go off on her. Listen.
This thing about the ground, the hot ground, he was talking to a dog whose paws are on the ground. It's not like he's saying
what a guy talking about talking to a dog. Are you kidding me? This is a guy who goes to an inferno where 1,000 people and children are missing because they cannot get any idea. They have been so destroyed. There's no odontology reports. There's no fingerprints. There's no body frames. There's nothing. That's why they can't identify everyone. And he talks to a dog, and he talks about the fact that he almost lost a cat. Are you kidding me? He almost lost a cat. Jill and I know what it's like to lose. This guy has been lying from the moment he came on the political scene. He has a lack of empathy. He is egocentric. He's got a condescending smirk whenever anybody asks him a question from the press. He's lying and he's narcissistic. And you know what? He's not trying to make it feel like he's part of their misery. He's a narcissist and an egomaniac who's trying to make it about himself. And you know what? I'll bet he got more than $700 when he had that so-called fire in his house. And on the same day that Biden offered the $700 checks, he gave Ukraine $200 million to Kyiv.
So what?
Let me finish. So what? What about the people in Hawaii who are saying, we're Americans, aren't we? Why aren't we getting that kind of money? The people in Kyiv have already gotten in Ukraine $113 billion. $700, they don't have food, clothing, shelter, a home, and they're missing their family. Don't tell me $700 is enough. And when he says no, Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. She says Joe Biden cares about people. Karine, explain why he said when they asked about the rising death toll, he said no comment. The bottom line is he systematically lies. He says he was Greek, he was Jewish, he was raised in a Puerto Rican community, and that the Charlemagne the God, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. He's just a narcissist who does not belong on the world stage.
Well, I hope Judge Janine liked her job at Fox because, I mean, talk about she just pulled no punches, and I happen to agree with her. I think that.
I totally agree with her. You know, there's a guy that I work with alongside. He's a consultant. He always comments on the show, screaming liberal, and he was talking about the $700, and you know, he's basically blaming it on Congress. The $700 max available for immediate needs from FEMA. If anyone wants to raise it, they should talk to Congress, the people who hold the purse strings. Well, it was the Democrats for a long time, but either way, that said, Biden's asking for $12 billion in relief, but hey, it's up to Congress. Well, and then he notes a liberal website, but you know what? What about like the people that are coming across the border? It wasn't Congress that's giving them that money. It's the Democrats, Joe Biden, and let's say, you know, that it's Congress that's blocking them. It was the Supreme Court that was blocking because it's law that you can't sit there and repay the student debt or just pay it off and make it go away. Joe sat there and said, the hell with it. So that's your president. The hell with it. Is Mr. Hell with it. He could sit there and say, you know what? This is America. Hawaiians are American. Let's give them the money that they need to get there and get their life going again. He didn't do that. He fell asleep at a table. He's asleep at the switch.
Hey, he could send in the National Guard with soup kitchens and all these medical supplies. I mean, he could be doing. He could have bulldozers in there to get rid of the debris. And he is absolutely a waste of space. This guy.
Oh, he is. Look, we have military bases within 100 miles. They weren't even there. We didn't even send somebody over in a rowboat until 2 days after the dang thing burned to the ground. So sorry, Mr. BJ. Bill.
I got one for you.
You don't have a.
Hey, I got one for you. This is true. This is from Will Kane. Will Kane is a member of Fox and Friends Weekend. He owns property in Maui. So when he vacations, he goes over to Hawaii and relaxes and enjoys the fruits of his efforts, right? He said he was over there when the fire started, and one of the first guys to report from the fire. I wasn't aware of that because I don't watch Fox anymore. But he said yesterday he was talking to a drone operator who lives in the area, a professional drone operator who was shooting video of the town, the destruction, the devastation. He wanted to go to what they call the hot zone, where they all believe the fire started, and he said the drone got to the area, and I guess when you have a professional license for a professional drone, the FAA has software that can interrupt your controls, kind of take control and move you away or shut you down, put you on the ground. The FAA did that to him. He went over towards the hot zone where the fire supposedly started, and the FAA took control of his drone and shut him down. He said, and that's not all. He said a few minutes later, on his door, a knock on his door, the government agents were there asking him what he was doing and why he was flying a drone over that site. Now, if they are honest about this, if they don't want to have all these conspiracy theories out there, you would think that they would be forthright about everything. They would let everything out, put everything on the table, everything. But they're not doing that. So a lot of people are saying, wait a second, there's another chapter or two to this story that they're not giving us. We don't know the whole story.
No, we don't. And I don't know the whole story about the wildfires. It's global warming. Yeah, there's embers floating in the air that was carried around by a hurricane that burned up, La Nina, and now is traveling around the globe. It's got Canada on fire. It's got Washington State on fire. Now, where is it? In Italy, Greece? I think they got wildfires going out of control there. Excuse me. This is starting. This crap is getting too deep, too fast, and somebody is.
And then, Bill, if all of that stuff doesn't make you go, then you have to ask yourself, why are they pushing the COVID thing all over again? The COVID thing, they're telling people in certain areas, I think it was Lionsgate Pictures, big movie company, Lionsgate. They said, we're going to have all of our people wear masks now and put the COVID mandates in place in our organization. Lionsgate, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at their image on the screen, I want you to see the letters WOKE under their graphic, okay? Because that's what they are. Also, there's a school down in Alabama, a historically black school, that has initiated the mandates again for masks. But here's the thing: if you look at the statistics, have you read the statistics on the on some of the news? The statistics on the COVID outbreaks are like less than 5%. I mean, it is minuscule. We don't have an epidemic right now. So why are they doing this?
Well, I'm going to give you a story that I just remembered it from yesterday. Mm-hmm. We didn't even talk about this. But, gas prices are going up again. They're going through the roof. And I do have a suspicion about this COVID thing, that it ties into the fact that the economy is not what it's supposed to be and gas prices are going up. And so now, good time, and we got an election too. Let's bring out the Kraken again so that we can blame everything on that, and it probably went back to Trump. But how important is coal? Well, we could have a warm winter.
Yeah.
We could have a warm winter. I was in Hunlock Creek yesterday. Hunlock Creek is it's out in the woods, but it's north of where I live, and it gets cold up there. But anyway, I was out helping a buddy, and he goes, I got to get some coal in here for warming up the big warehouse where he keeps all the equipment and everything. So, it's $395 a ton is what you pay for the coal. But because we take the truck up, we can get a ton for $195, which is a damn good deal. But okay, here's the story. Now the story is, well, yeah, you guys got here in time because until we get our next shipment of coal in, you guys are it. Well, what happened to all your coal? Oh, we're selling it to China at $800 a ton. China is buying all of our coal for $800 and $900 a ton, double what America pays for it.
Unbelievable. And what gets me is people on the left will say, that's disgusting. People on the left will say, well, if you had electric, you wouldn't have that problem. No. Pull over to the side of the road, okay? Where do you think the electric comes from?
Well, across the Susquehanna River over here, they use coal.
That's exactly right. A lot of these people don't go past the plug on their car. Oh, I put electric in my car. But what they don't realize is that electricity is generated at coal-fired plants around the country. Yeah, some nuclear plants too, but for the most part, coal-fire. And all right. I mean, we are in these are the strangest of times, aren't they? When you think about it, we are living in an alternate universe. It's like at some point, where did I slip through that wormhole and land up here? Holy smokes. What happened to common sense?
Well, you think about it. It was PA that where the problem began. But, everyone goes, well, we got nuclear power plants. Actually, we've been shutting down nuclear power plants all over the world. And we quit building them here in the United States after 3 Mile Island, which is still running. But, and that one actor that went to hell, it's melting through the encasement to get into the China syndrome again.
Really?
So they've been talking about that. They sent things down there going, well, it's not really doing what it's supposed to do. And I'm like, well, there's another disaster in the making. But the point is you can't depend on nuclear energy because we're not set up for it. We've maintained as best we could the plants we have. As far as I know, there are no new ones. Some are being shut down for good.
Yeah.
So coal is it. Now, there was one time that back in the 70s, well, we got a 500-year supply of coal. Well, we actually do have an abundant supply of coal. But Joe has given away our strategic oil, all of our oil, shut down everything that we've got where we have the richest area to get oil, but we're no longer doing it. And now we're giving away our coal?
And what was the first thing that Joe did? Like the first thing that Joe did when he became president of the United States? He closed the Keystone Pipeline deal. That would have brought oil cheaper into our country than you could ever have imagined.
So you think you're sweating it out this summer? Wait until you freeze your ass off this winter. Thanks, Joe.
Well, let's address some of the things some of our leftist friends will say to us, okay? They're going to say, well, we have wind farms now, and we have solar energy. Well, let's talk about both of those things, all right?
Solar farms.
Solar energy it generates a fraction of what we need as far as energy goes in this country. I mean, a fraction. And by the way, when the sun goes down at nighttime, there's no generation of anything. It's done until the sun comes up. Wind farms, those wonderful environmentally, safe wind farms that are killing the whales and killing birds right and left because they're getting hit by the blades. But those things, they only generate a fraction of the power that we need. Neither of those are a viable option to what we need as a country.
But Jim, aren't those big giant wind turbines in the sky, aren't they beautiful?
Oh,
don't they really just sit there and make God's green earth? Since we are going green, don't they just make it look beautiful? And they're full of oil and chemicals. They catch fire in the sky.
The people down in Martha's Vineyard, right? They're all, for the most part, they're leftists. Otherwise, Barack Obama wouldn't have moved there. Trust me. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, he's down in a community of like-minded people. So when they said, we're going to put a wind farm right off the beaches of Martha's Vineyard, those futuristic people, these people who believe that the future of the environment was wind and solar, they went ballistic. You know why? Because those wind farms were going to take away from their view. And also, I guess I'm not aware of this, but apparently when it's really windy out, some of them make a whistling noise, and they don't like the noise.
Yeah, that's another thing. Those turbines up there, they generate. Now, they put out EMF fields, electromagnetic fields, and those can be, leukemia, cancer-causing agents that are out there. Plus, there is a frequency that they generate that can cause, Bill, you're making this stuff up, but, start doing some research on it. They do cause certain conditions that are not healthy if you live in the immediate area. So they're not, they do more harm than they do good. Plus, they take up valuable real estate and resources. And when you generate electricity, whether it's through wind or solar, one of the big problems is, if you use it as you generate it and you don't generate it at nighttime or when the wind don't blow, what good is it? You've got to store it and allocate it. And that's the problem. We need to come up with a way to generate electricity that's clean, very efficient and consistent to where, hey, turn it on, set it, and forget it. It does what it's supposed to do. I'm sure that there is technology out there. There should be awards for people that come up with that. But no, we don't care because big industry owns the coal. And they don't care if you buy it or they can get $800 a ton for it to go to China because the oligarchs in the world, they're going to have their allotment of whatever they need to stay warm and eat and drink water that's clean. You, my friend, you are just a minion. You're living under the mushroom.
Didn't Nikola Tesla, back about 1900, prove that you could generate electricity free with his Tesla coil? His whole idea was to give free energy to the masses. You'd be able to power your electric lights and other electrical devices in your home because he figured out a way to distribute electricity free to the masses. And of course, you know what his investors, i.e. J.P. Morgan, did?
Yeah, forget about that.
As soon as they found out that they weren't going to make a profit, a massive profit on this thing, they pulled their investment. And that idea went by the wind. But the fact of the matter is, you mentioned about having an idea, having some ingenious idea. There are ingenious. You mentioned was it the hydrogen cell, the hydrogen battery?
That's actually out there. And there are places that will fill up your hydrogen battery like a gas tank, because the point is, and that it can be done within under 5 minutes. So you can drive a big diesel and, plug into the hydrogen cell to fill it up. It's like filling gas. It's cheap, and boom, you're back on the road. And
what's the byproduct, Bill?
Water.
So, I mean, it's not smoke. It's not gases. It's water.
Yeah, look, if you want to understand what it is, look up Brown's gas. Brown's gas. It's made out of water. You have an anode and an electrode. You're taking a negative and a positive and putting it in water.
Right.
And you're separating it's H2O.
How powerful?
Hydrogen and water.
How powerful are these batteries, these engines that run on it? I mean, do they move buses and trucks and stuff like that right now?
Yeah, they can move those. They have trucks that in California that are going up and down the state.
When you said that they fill them up in 5 minutes, do they fill them up with water? Is that the fuel?
I'm assuming. I don't know. It's a hydrogen cell, so I would imagine either it's already, either the water's already been turned into hydrogen that you're pumping in there,
right?
Just gas, or I think that's what they do. I think you're pumping in the hydrogen gas.
But here's the thing: there are other alternatives out there that we could be using that we're not using. We were listening to a bit yesterday from Colonel McGregor on Tucker's most recent show, and he was talking about M1 Abrams tanks and how they use turbine engines right now, and they use the same amount of gas idling, doing nothing, not moving, as they use when they're racing down the street. And he said it's because they're turbine engines that were designed for airplanes, meaning they're always running at a certain rate. He said, but there are other alternatives that they don't use, electric assist, maybe even hydrogen. And I'm thinking, why aren't we doing stuff like this? Why is it that we see it out here, the amateurs out here, you and I, and why aren't the politicians seeing this and going, we've got to make some massive changes to our government and our military, or we're going to be toast, but they don't do it. They talk. All they do is talk, which leads us to another topic, which I think we could have the Colonel McGregor cut that I put together. It's a 5-minute cut. It's a piece from the same Tucker on Twitter interview he did this week. It's a 50-minute interview. If you haven't heard it, listen to the whole thing, because this guy, Colonel McGregor, gives you more truth in less time than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, when you listen to most politicians, they can talk for 20 minutes and don't say a blessed thing, right?
Well, he gives you a lot of information.
He really, really does. He in like 60 seconds, he just inundates you with facts and figures. This is Colonel Douglas McGregor with Tucker on Twitter, his most recent episode. Listen.
This is a no-win situation, because the Russians, though they were not prepared in February 2022 for this kind of war, they are now. And they're continuing to prepare, which includes continuous mobilization. They're up to 750,000 troops in and around Ukraine. Most of them are on the outskirts, Belarusia, Western Russia, down in southern Ukraine. That number is going to rise over the next year, I would expect, to 1.2 million. And people are reservists being called out of universities. People are being through the military now, working in universities to become engineers, architects, mathematicians, whatever. They're being pulled out, put in a uniform, and readied. Because, again, our intransigence, our demonstrated hatred and hostility for Moscow and for Russia has convinced the Russian people, as well as the leadership in Moscow, that they are going to have to fight us and anyone who is allied with us. So they're preparing for that eventuality. That's why it's so important that we have to wake up, understand what we've done has backfired. Whatever we set out to achieve has failed. What we need to do now is stop this and come to a settlement that we may not like, but it needs to happen, and soon, before this thing is out of control. Eventually, you keep this up within the next 6-8 months, you'll see hundreds of thousands of Russian troops on the Polish border. That is not what we set out to achieve.
No, it's a terrifying disaster. And what cost do you think to the United States? What
the latest estimates since 2001 spending, including the spending in Ukraine, all the military spending designed to support these interventions, conflicts, wars, whatever you want to call them, about $14 trillion. Now, that $14 trillion is largely debt financed. So then you have to move from the $14 trillion to where we stand now in national sovereign debt, which, of course, I know the economic luminaries think is meaningless. But you have 130 million workers, and you look at those figures, and suddenly you realize that every adult male or woman in the United States who works for a living has a debt hanging over them of roughly $240,000. In order to deal with what the 14 trillion have added to the national sovereign debt. And this is part of the issue that people are walking away from this war for good reasons. Look, the average American earns about $31,000 a year. That's it. The average American pays about $16,600 a year. Now, the people in Congress, this doesn't affect them or in the Hill or inside the Beltway. We're talking about the real Americans who live out there who are scratching out a living. Keep in mind that a person who works all his life and then tries to draw on Social Security can expect a monthly payment of probably $1,400 if they're lucky. $1,400. We hand every alleged asylum seeker, illegal migrant pouring in through the border in Texas or wherever else, we hand them when they get there $2,200. And we put them on that $2,200 diet from there on out per month. Yet somebody who works all his life, retires and draws Social Security gets $1,400. The Afghans who were hanging on to the planes in Kabul trying to come to the United States, when they arrived, they received $2,200 a month. Now, if you can make sense out of this, please try, because I don't think most Americans can make sense out of this at all. And that's one of the reasons people have said, not because they know anything about Ukraine. Most Americans don't. If they knew anything about the history of Eastern Europe, they would all say, get out. Because the wars and the blood and the hatred that have been characterized to that part of the world for hundreds of years is something we can't sort out. We can't fix it. We shouldn't try to arbitrate it. We don't know anything about it. We shouldn't be in this, is the bottom line. I think Americans have figured that out. But now they're beginning to look at the numbers and the figures, and they say, what happened to consent by the governed? Instead, we have contempt for the governed. Whatever the governed want, they don't get. Who gets it? Well, the donors get what they want. You know, somebody was joking the other day and said, you know, Doug, if the donors were cannibals, they'd feed the American people to them. That's the attitude in Washington, D.C. What's the donor want? Give me more money. It's a catastrophe. It's the destruction of our whole republic. I don't think people realize how far gone things are. A lot of Americans sense it. And I think we're on the path to some sort of national come to Jesus moment where we're tired of being the contemptibles. We want to have a say in what our government does, and we really don't have it.
You know, you got to listen to Douglas McGregor. He's on with Tucker this week on Tucker on Twitter. I was thinking, you know, when these people come across our border, I bet you they haven't made $2,200 a month, many of them, ever, you know? So it's like,
let alone a year.
It's like they hit the lottery. Why wouldn't they come across the border? Free money, free housing. You don't have to get a job because odds are you can't get employed legally anyway. So they'll just keep handing you a check for free. Well, like I said the other day when I was in one of the shopping malls in Massachusetts a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting there just waiting for my family to finish their shopping, I was noticing that most of the people were speaking Spanish.
Oh, yeah. I had that situation at a store the other day, and I really don't want to go into it, but, I was waiting around to get an oil change.
Yeah.
And there was one couple ahead of me of color, and, but they were speaking in Spanish. Now, they were doing it deliberately because they were arguing amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And they didn't want anyone else to know what they were talking about, although it was pretty obvious. They were debating how to get their tires rotated. It was the same price to rotate one tire or all four.
Yeah.
Okay, but this was a 45-minute conversation while I'm standing there waiting to get an oil change. Long story short, they were obviously, they turned to the clerk and talk in English. Their son would talk in English to him. But then they would debate amongst themselves in, Spanish is what they were doing because they happened to know it. And then they would look at other people that were, and, it was obvious they were saying derogatory things, a few words I knew. And I'm like going, how rude, how ignorant, how racist of them to do that. Nobody really cared about your conversation until you made it poignantly obvious that you were doing something and talking about them, and your conversation was stupid. Get your frickin' tires rotated.
And by the way,
the price was the
there
same.
are a number of people in this country who are bilingual. I just want you to know that, who can actually understand what an idiot you're making, what a fool you're making of yourself. But, I was thinking, we've turned down the temperature on the melting pot. It ain't melting anymore. You call a bank or someplace nowadays, you hear the instructions in English or Spanish. You call your internet company, you hear the instructions in English and Spanish. When I was a kid, or my parents, even them, when they were kids, their neighbors who were French came down from Canada.
Learn the language here.
They came down from Canada, or they came from Italy, or they came from Portugal, a lot of Portuguese in southeastern Massachusetts. They came to this country. The first thing they did, they learned to speak the language. And, maybe some of them didn't speak it all that well in the beginning, but they kept working at it, and they got it down, and they blended and melted in. And even they
you know what?
Are angry now. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they're mad too.
Yeah.
So but I thought we won wars and we won rights for democracy, but apparently we have a set of people that are giving it up. But I took a walk yesterday, and I've been on this health kick, and I was listening to the podcast. I was going, it sounds good. But when you walk, do you ever contemplate or think about different things?
Oh, all the time, yeah.
And I mentioned this before the show. I don't know if now's a good time to do it or not, but it was a fun debate before the show, so this ought to be fun. But, I sat there and I said, wow, in a really strange world, what would you do? What would you do, Jim, if, you get a ring on the phone or at the door, Mr. Harrington, we're with the Biden administration. Look, we've listened to the podcast. We don't believe a thing you're saying, but you know what? You're one hell of a marketer. And we're going to pay you $25 million. Take care of your family. And all we want you to do is put a smile on the Biden administration and make them look
I would become
really good.
I would become indignant. I would say, sir, do you think I'm a man with no standards that you can walk in here and say, how much was that? 25 million? Wait a second. Wait, hold it. No, I'd like to think that I would have more of a firm stance on my position, but I do think that there are a lot of people who go to Washington, for example, and they are met with this for real. They'll go down to Washington, and they're really articulate, and they seem like they're going to be the next great Mr. Smith Goes to Washington character. They're going to stand out and stand for something, and then some PAC organization will come along. Some political action committee will come along and say, we'd like to donate to your whatever. We'd like to give you an endowment of several $1 million for you to maybe along the way you might adjust your position on certain things. Wink, wink, and
nod, yeah.
That's how I think it happens all the time in that swamp they call Washington.
Yeah, if you've got something they want,
yep,
they can take care of your kids. That they can do for you what you can't do for your kids.
Oh, what school do you want to send your kids to? You want to go to what
exactly?
School?
Yeah. So where are your values? I mean, well, let's face it. I mean, God is forgiving; He forgives all. You have sinned. You can ask for forgiveness, and He will forgive you. So, with that knowledge, how good of a Christian are you?
I'd like to think I'm a pretty good one, but I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I'd like to think that I wouldn't fold like a cheap suit, but temptation is tough. And what's the old saying? Every man has a price.
And you know what? America's price is pretty cheap and low. As long as you get out of bed in the morning, you feel okay, you have something there to eat, and you can go about your day unencumbered. Life under the mushroom isn't so bad. So when we sit here and scream, "Wake up, America!" Well, you did wake up. You just don't care because you're comfortable with the pittance that you have right now, and you don't look beyond today to see tomorrow, next week, or next month, because there really is no consequence for you immediately.
Johnny Reese is a major league pitcher who always had a talent for striking people out. Teams fell over themselves trying to recruit the young man with the menacing fastball. But baseball isn't his only talent. He's also a major league hitman, a contract killer who likes his work. Reese does more than strike opponents out. He eliminates them altogether. Retired New York City detective Jack Kane has come to Pittsburgh to find a killer, and Squeeze Play by Jim Harrington is the story about what happens when these two alpha males meet and go head to head. It's a great weekend read. Squeeze Play from Dover and Blackstone Media, LLC. It's available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and many other great online book sites. Or visit itsanotherday.com and click on our link at the top of the page. When it comes to mysteries and a great read, Squeeze Play is a grand slam.
Hey, you can contact us here anytime you want to. Our phone number is 833-538-7868, 833-538-7868.
And there's mail at itsanotherday.com. Maybe we said something that sparked some interest today that you've got to comment on. You might want to send us an email because you know what? Actually, even when people post a comment, positive or derogatory, I do read them because I feel that people, at least, they have a voice, they should be heard. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will at least look at it and say, what an idiot. No, I don't say that.
Hey, the debate is tonight, and everybody's saying the debate is for who is in second place. It's like they're running for vice president. Now, I don't know why Chris Christie is in there. I think he's a flamethrower. He's just there to cause problems.
He's the Pillsbury Doughboy. Come on. You don't like the Pillsbury Doughboy?
Asa Hutchinson has about as much chance. Asa Hutchinson has about as much chance winning the presidency as I do. As a matter of fact, I may have a better chance because I'm not as nasty as these guys are sometimes. I mean, Asa Hutchinson, I used to like him. He has a nice smile. He looks nice on camera. But when you listen to this guy talk right now, there's two words that come to mind: deep state. And I think about what you were just talking about a little while ago about financing and money. I think that plays a lot into this whole equation here. I think guys like Chris Christie, you got to ask yourself, what in God's name reason is he running for? Why is he? Doesn't he know he's not going to win? I mean, look around. Trump has 65% and you have 2%. You don't. It doesn't look too good for you. But I do think what you just said is true. I think it's money. There are people out there who are paying these troublemakers to go out there and do this, to stir up the water, to throw chum in the water, to cause
They're getting paid and they have no consequence to worry about. They don't have to worry about suffering they don't have to answer for the crime they commit because they're being paid to commit it.
Yeah. But, Ron DeSantis he got in a lot of trouble with a comment he made a couple of days ago. I don't know if you heard it. This is what he said. Listen.
A rhino or not. And so you could be the most conservative person since sliced bread. Unless you're kissing his rear end, they will somehow call you a rhino. So you're not rooted in principle. If all we are is listless vessels that's just supposed to follow, whatever happens to come down the pike on Truth Social every morning.
That's Ron DeSantis. You hear the comment he made? I mean, he goes on, but I'm going to play it one more time in case you missed it.
A rhino or not. And so you could be the most conservative person since sliced bread. Unless you're kissing his rear end, they will somehow call you a rhino. So you're not rooted in principle. If all we are is listless vessels that's just supposed to follow, whatever happens to come down the pike on Truth Social every morning, that's not going to be a durable movement.
That line about listless vessels, it caused a lot of problems. A lot of people said, wait a second. That reminded people of Hillary Clinton's.
Half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
Enough, Hillary, enough. I mean, it's tough. It's tough hearing that even years later, right? I mean, it's like, oh, gag me. But you think that DeSantis would, and he's a smart guy. Yeah, but I do think things like the stress and the long hours you put on, I think there's a certain wear on these candidates, and they're not thinking as clearly. When he says
to be the most conservative person since sliced bread, unless you're kissing his rear end, they will somehow call you a rhino. So you're not rooted in principle. If all we are is listless vessels.
Listless vessels. That's the term. Listless vessels. I never thought of myself as a listless vessel, but apparently I guess I kind of am if I follow President Trump.
You got to be careful saying that. You could come up with a lispy vessel, which is a whole different category.
It does indeed, yes.
But you mentioned the Clintons. They're back now. They can't. They know that their political careers are overrunning, so they're back with the Clinton Global Initiative, so they can get more donations and raise funds. Now, what's your problem with that, Bill? Well, here's a piece of legislation that somebody should do. And if not, maybe I'm going to run for president as a write-in candidate because I can raise money. The deal is when you generate that kind of money for whatever cause there is, whatever you have left over is yours to keep. Jim Harrington decides to run for president and collects donations, and he failed, didn't make it in. Well, after he pays his bills, all that money is his. Mm-hmm. So you ask why Chris Christie's doing it. It is a money grab. There's a lot of people out that are in it for the donations, and they're going to keep their staff small. And you're going, why? They got all that money. Why aren't they engaging? Because they want to keep all that money. So legislation time. Anybody that does something like that, the Clinton Initiative, or runs for political office, you did your thing, you ran, you did your drive, but you ran for office, it didn't win. You pay your staff, and the spoils, what's left of that money, goes to charity.
Well, then a lot of these
clowns would not run.
They'd open up a charity. They'd have some kind of
no.
charity.
They cannot. No. Okay, no. It's not up to them to decide where it goes. It goes in a charitable
like a blind trust thing where they They would have no control over it. Well,
no control.
You know what the chances of that passing Congress are? Slim and none. I mean, that it ain't going to happen. You're asking the villains to police themselves. No. You'll never see that.
But I'm saying that's where that money should go. How else do you explain Obama with his Martha Vineyard property, his $18 or $26 million property, Massachusetts, $18.5 million in Hawaii that didn't get burned, by the way? You got all these properties. How do you explain Joe Biden? Oh, yeah, well, he's written books and he does public speaking engagements. Really? He can't get a fly to show up at a frickin' rally.
Netflix gave him $60 million for one of his... And people said, ooh, what's he going to do?
Ooh, that stuff's got to stop.
You know what? He did nothing. I think they had one documentary about Michelle. They said it really, watching paint dry was much more interesting and exciting than this documentary. I mean, it went over like a pregnant pole vaulter, like screen doors on a submarine. It went over like biological gas in church. I mean, I'm not going to say it was
like a fart in church.
Oh,
okay,
yes, that's
no, it's okay. I mean, people look, with what's on YouTube and everything else, that word is.
I'd like to think that we hold ourselves to a higher standard. But that's just
thank
me.
You, Johnny Fever. Didn't you say booger once on the air too?
I don't know. Hey,
I got fired for a lot less than booger. I can tell you.
So this next 2 days, right? We have the debate tonight. But as soon as the debate is over, and when it stinks like bad fish, okay, and it will stink, it will be boring. It's going to have terrible reviews tonight. I just know it because no one is going to say anything exciting or earth shattering. I mean, they may attack Trump, but Trump is going to be over on Twitter, and everybody's going to be going over and watching him. Maybe he and Tucker, maybe their whole program will be watching the debate and then answering them in real time. That could be an interesting approach.
Well, that could be. Or, you know what? President Trump could do the debate.
But he could do it
there and do that. And then they cut off so-and-so, and he answers the question.
Yeah.
And he answers every question and leaves them out to hang and dry.
Absolutely, yeah.
That would be beautiful.
I'll be looking at that tonight.
That'll be interesting because if they did that, maybe they haven't thought of it, and we do know that certain people listen.
But tomorrow, Bill, when he presents himself, that's going to be the news. That is going to suck up all the oxygen from everything else this week because the media wants you to think that Trump is a criminal. He's presenting himself for arrest at Fulton County Jail. Do you know that they could indict you and me? I mean, I haven't been to Atlanta since I was in the military, and I was flying into Atlanta. No, I take that back. I did change planes there once at the airport, but the fact of the matter is, they can then indict anybody, but they're going to make it sound like he's John Dillinger, and they got him.
Okay, he's indicted for a phone call. We need to find 11,780 votes, which is something the Democrats have done in every election they've lost. Let's go back and look at those votes and see where we lost and see if we can flip those votes or see if there was a mistake. Okay, that is a legit conversation. He is being charged with, well, wait a minute. He was never convicted of or charged with insurrection. So how can you sit there and use January 6th to bring him up and say, well, this is all racketeering? These are, as they say, trumped up charges. Hey, they're fake.
They said he complained about losing the election, like he had no right to claim that he lost the election. Like the Democrats have never said that.
Is he the legitimate governor-elect of Georgia?
He is the person who won an adequate number of votes
but that's
to become the governor.
With all due respect, and I respect where you're coming from, and I respect the issues that you're raising, you're not answering the question. Do you think it was... You're not using the word legitimate. Is he the legitimate governor-elect of Georgia?
He is the legal governor of Georgia. And here's the thing, Jake. I want to be very clear. Words have meaning. And I've spent my lifetime not only as an attorney, but as a writer. And I'm very careful with the words I choose. And yes, when he takes the oath of office, he will be the legal governor of the state of Georgia. He is the legal victor. But what you are looking for me to say is that there was no compromise of our democracy and that there should be some political compromise in the language I use. And that's not right. What's not right is saying that something was done properly when it was not. I will never deny the legal permature that says that he is in this position, and I pray for his success. But will I say that this election was not tainted, was not a disinvestment and a disenfranchisement of thousands of voters? I will not say that.
That's Stacey Abrams when she was running for governor. And, you know, did they indict her for saying what she just said? Because she did exactly what Trump has done, said it was an illegal election. They should have indicted her. No, they gave her book deals. They gave her parts on Star Trek. They applauded her.
She was terrible on that. Yeah, she was president of the
Universe.
Universe. Yeah, whatever it was.
Yes.
She was president in her own mind of something. So, you know.
She looked good, though, flying in on that spaceship. It was very appropriate.
She looked like the mothership there, you know, just never mind.
Anyway,
in her moo-moo.
It's going to be an interesting week. You got to wonder, Bongino's putting out there that proposal. Why don't you not pay the bail, the $200,000? By the way, $200,000, even though he can afford it. The fact of the matter, he has to pay any bail at all. He's the most recognized man in the world, maybe. He's no flight risk. Where can he go and hide? I mean, he could go to Timbuktu and they'll recognize him there. So, I mean, they're just doing this to embarrass him because they want to. Some schmuck, I love that term. You got to love Yiddish. And when the words sound like what they mean, you know, that schmuck judge down in Fulton County, who he's going to show Trump, you know, $200,000 in bail. If I were that judge, I would have said, look, this is a nonsensical indictment. I'm dismissing it right here. Case closed. Have a nice day. But, you know, they're all in on it. Jonathan Turley had some comments about what's going to happen tomorrow in this whole indictment down in Fulton County.
It's excessive, and I think it's also dangerous. It essentially criminalizes challenges to elections. There's no sort of limiting principle in this document. You know, they are charging things like the president saying publicly we need to have a recount.
That's Jonathan Turley. He's a liberal. He's a Georgetown University law professor. He's not speaking as a partisan on our side. He's just speaking as an American. It's dangerous what they're doing down there. They're playing games with the Constitution. They shouldn't do it. Anyway, I think we've done it. It's a wrap.
Oh, we did it all right.
Yeah. If you want to call us, our number is 833-538-7868. 833-538-7868.
Mail at itsanotherday.com.
As you normally do when we end the show, I think you should do this time now. This should not be an exception. I think you should step up to the microphone. I think you should vibrate your cricoid. Yes, and I think you should say...
Hasta la vista, baby! We're out of here!
A terrorist sleeper cell has plans to detonate a suitcase nuclear device while the president and the Israeli Prime Minister are making an appearance at the Convention Center in Pittsburgh. Can a retired New York City cop stop it from happening? If the cop is Jack Kane, then it's got a good chance. Strike at the Giant, a Jack Kane mystery by Jim Harrington, is a page-turner that will keep you riveted from cover to cover. Strike at the Giant, a Jack Kane mystery from Dover and Blackstone Media, LLC, is available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and many other great online book sites. Or visit itsanotherday.com and click on our link at the top of the page. When it comes to mysteries and a great read, Strike at the Giant is all you need. The Voice of Freedom, CRN America. These days, when you want an answer about just about anything, you ask Alexa. You ask her about the weather. You ask her who won your favorite sporting event. You ask her to find a fact that you can't find anywhere. Well, we did that too. We asked her how many people have downloaded itsanotherday.com. And this is what she said.
From acceleration.com, It has been downloaded as much as 260,433,467 times.
I know. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot to us, too. But it's Alexa. Thanks for making us a part of your day. And tell your friends about itsanotherday.com. We could use an extra listener. I mean, what do you do when you only have 260 million?